How much income will I get from that £500,000 pension that I've built up? That's a question I got recently from somebody I know. And this is very common for a lot of people because for most people, they spend years of their career building up their pension pots to hundreds of thousands of pounds, but ultimately have no idea how much income that's actually going to give them when they come to retire. And the big problem is that the amount it can provide can vary by tens of thousands of pounds, depending on which option you take and when you decide to retire. So in this video, I'm going to show you some examples of how much income you could expect from a pension pot size of £500,000 and the impact that the options you choose can have on that level of income. But if you're new here, my name's Ben, I'm a chartered financial planner, and my aim is to help as many people as possible gain more clarity and confidence around their personal finances and their retirement plan. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is actually look at how you can actually take money from your pension. Because for most of us, we spend years working, putting money into our pension, but ultimately have no idea how to actually access that money when it comes to retirement. Now, typically, there are two main options you've got when it comes to retirement. One is flexi-access drawdown, and the other is an annuity. Now, with flexi-access drawdown, your pension remains invested in the stock market, even throughout retirement. And you can take as much or as little of that pension as you want each year. And typically you'll find that 25% of this is tax-free, which is what most people know as their tax-free cash lump sum. And the remaining 75% is taxable. Now, the rate at which you pay tax on the other portion depends on your other income when you come to retirement. But for most people, it's going to be at 20%. And with an annuity, you transfer your pension pot to an annuity provider, and that annuity provider will then pay you a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. Okay, so let's actually look at how much income you can expect from a £500,000 pension if you decide to go down the route of purchasing an annuity. Now, one of the key things when it comes to annuity is that you can purchase this at any point. You don't need to make that decision on the day you retire. So, for example, you could decide to use flexi-access drawdown from age 60 to 75. And at that point, any money you've got left in your flexi-access drawdown pension, you can then use to purchase an annuity. And one of the benefits of doing this is that you can actually benefit from a higher annuity rate the older you get. And for a lot of people, they prefer the guarantee later in life because, quite frankly, we often see that as people get older, they're a bit more risk averse and they actually prefer that guaranteed income that the annuity provides. Now, when it comes to purchasing an annuity, there are a variety of different options which can have a big impact on the annuity rate you get. So commonly, you'll see either single life or joint life. And simply what this means is that if it's single life, that annuity dies with you. However, if you pick a joint life annuity, all or part of that annuity will continue and be payable to your spouse or whoever survives you in the event of your death. You'll also see one of the other options is level or increasing. And simply what this means is that does that annuity increase in line with inflation in payment or does it remain static? And again, you can see the impact this has on the annuity rate you get. And of course, the other big variable is when you actually take that annuity and when it becomes payable. So clearly, the earlier you take it, in theory, the longer that's got to last, and therefore that's reflected in the annuity rate available. Okay, so let's look at the current annuity rates available for a variety of different annuity styles. And you'll see on screen here, I've laid out a couple of examples. Now, it's important to know that the figure you can see currently is the gross annuity rate. So this is the rate you'll get as an income before tax is deducted. And you'll see that the rate varies from 4.75% to 7.86%, depending on the option you choose. Okay, so let's now convert that gross figure to a net figure. And to calculate this, I've assumed your annuity is going to be taxed at 15%. And the way I've calculated this is I've assumed that you've taken that 25% tax-free lump sum and you've used that to purchase part of your annuity as well. So that part will be entirely tax-free. You then got the remaining 75% taxed at 20%. And when you combine those two together, you get an aggregate tax of 15%. So you'll see that changes the net annuity rate between 4.04% and 6.68%. Again, depending on which option you choose. Okay, so now let's convert that into a monetary amount because quite frankly, percentages don't mean an awful lot to a lot of people. So this now shows you the net income you would get for each one of those options. So you'll see the net income you could get from an annuity is between £20,200 and £33,400. So straight away, you can see how much of an impact it has in terms of the annuity rate you choose and when you choose to purchase that annuity. Okay, let's now move on to flexi-access drawdown. And this is where things start to get a little bit more complicated because as I said earlier, with this option, your pension remains invested. Now, clearly, because it is remaining invested, your income you get is massively dependent on how the stock market performs over your retirement. And you'll see how much of an impact that can have later on in the video. But if you are enjoying the video and getting some value from it, please do consider subscribing, because I'll be hosting a lot more videos just like this on personal finance and retirement planning in the future. So as I said earlier, with flexi-access drawdown, you can take as much or as little as you want from that pension every single year. So in theory, you could take that full £500,000 on day one of your retirement. Now, clearly, if you did decide to do this, you would be massively taxed. So this is probably not something you want to be doing, but it is an option should you wish to. But the bigger question when it comes to flexi-access drawdown is, how sustainable is your income? Will your pension pot run out before you die? And the sustainability is typically driven by three main things: when you retire, how much income you take, and the growth on your pension pot throughout retirement. Now, in theory, if you withdrew the growth on your pension pot each year, the value of your pension pot will remain static. Now, clearly this has some benefits, because it means that when you die, your kids or beneficiaries would receive a large pension pot there. But clearly, this is sort of missing the point, because ultimately your pension pot is there to actually provide you with an income whilst you're living. And this isn't necessarily the most efficient way of drawing your income, because quite frankly, it's not really maximizing your lifestyle whilst you're alive. So first, let's look at how flexi-access drawdown compares to the annuity. Now, for the purposes of this comparison, I've used joint life increasing annuities at both age 60 and age 65. And the reason for this is because we want to use a joint life, because to make that a fair comparison, any money you've got left in your flexi-access drawdown pot when you die is passed to your spouse or beneficiaries. So this is more of a like-for-like comparison. And we also want to ensure your income is keeping in line with inflation. So again, this is why I've chosen the increasing annuity as the comparison rather than the level annuities. So on screen now, you can see the average pension pot of £500,000 and how it would have fared in terms of its value throughout your retirement based on the last 100 years of market data. Now, for the purposes of this, we've assumed that's invested in a balanced portfolio, so about 60% equities and 40% bonds. And what I've done is I've assumed you're withdrawing the same amount from that pension pot each year as you would have got if you had purchased an annuity. So you can see that based on annuity rate at age 60, we're withdrawing £20,200 a year net of tax. And based on the annuity rate at age 65, we're withdrawing £22,800, again, net of tax. And you can see the value of those pension pots at the end of that period. So for the individual retiring at age 60, that's a 30-year retirement period, because when we're putting these together, we're assuming that people are going to live to age 90. And for the individual that retires or purchases the annuity at age 65, clearly this is a 25-year retirement. And you can see the values of these pensions. So for the individual at age 60, they've got a pension pot in today's terms of £537,000 at age 90. And the individual retiring at age 65, their pension pot at age 90 on average would have been £398,000, again, in today's terms. So you're probably looking at this and thinking, okay, well, you've told me with an annuity I would get this level of income for the rest of my life, and then when I die, it basically disappears. And then you've shown me the flexi-access drawdown pot on average could actually be more when I die than it is at the start. So flexi-access drawdown's a no-brainer, isn't it? And that's where you would be wrong, because this is where sequencing risk comes in. And this is a huge thing that's often overlooked, not just by individuals, but as financial planners themselves. Now, when it comes to growth on your pension, that is not linear, because quite clearly, some years the markets will do very well, some years the markets will do okay, and other years they won't do very well at all. And although over the course of a 30-year retirement, you would expect the returns to be about the same regardless, when you retire, it can actually have a massive impact on the sustainability of those withdrawals. So on screen now, I've got a graph, and quite frankly, there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to try and simplify it and explain it as best as possible. So each line on this graph represents a point in time when you would have retired. So as it says there at the bottom, year of retirement. And what this shows is that if you'd gone into flexi-access drawdown from age 60 and you're invested in a balanced portfolio of, again, 60% equities and 40% bonds, what your sustainable level of income could have been over that period. So this is what I mean by sequencing risk. So you can see here, we've got a variety of different sustainable levels of income, with the minimum being £17,000 a year if you retired in 1915. Now, clearly, if you'd done this, you would have gone through 2 world wars, which, is probably a large explanation as to why that would be so low. However, at the other end of the scale, if you retired in 1982, you could have actually achieved a sustainable income over that 30-year retirement of £44,000 a year. So you can see this is why an annuity can be beneficial, because there are periods there, albeit 4 of the last 100 years, where you would not have had enough to be able to draw the same level of income as the annuity offered. However, you can still see that there are a lot of those years, clearly 96 of those 100, where you could have either matched the annuity on offer or actually been in a position where you could have drawn a higher level of sustainable income than that offered by the annuity. And here you can see the same example, but at age 65 rather than age 60. So again, very similar story. You've got the minimum sustainable withdrawal there, again 1915, the maximum again 1982, with those being 19,000 and 47,000 respectively. And again, over that period, based on the 25-year retirement, if you were retired at 7 of those 100 years, your sustainable income would have been less than the annuity offered. And the other 93 years out of those 100, you would have either been able to match the annuity or actually withdrawn a higher level of income than that offered by the annuity. Now, clearly at this point, it's worth saying that I have no idea what the annuity rates were back in 1915. So this isn't necessarily an apples for apples comparison, but it should give you an idea of where annuity could actually work and how sequencing risk actually works when it comes to flexi-access drawdown. Okay, so if we go back to the initial question, how much income does a £500,000 pension give you? And quite clearly, the answer can vary massively depending on when you retire and the options you choose. But on screen now, I've put roughly the sorts of level of income you could expect based on the different options. So you can see if you go down the annuity route at age 60, that's going to be £20,200 a year based on today's annuity rates. At age 65, that would be £22,800. Now, clearly, when it comes to flexi-access drawdown, as you've just seen, the amount you can actually withdraw sustainably is going to vary massively depending on the level of risk you're taking and ultimately how lucky you are with when you retire. But ultimately, that's going to be around 28,000 on average, again, based on historical market returns, if you were to retire at age 60. And at age 65, that's going to be about £30,000 a year. Now, it's worth pointing out that all of this is based on historical market data, and there's no means of guarantee that this is going to play out again in the future. And ultimately, if you do decide to take a different level of risk, if you do go down flexi-access drawdown route, that again is going to have a big impact on the sustainability of your withdrawals. It's also worth pointing out that this has been based on assuming you live to age 90. Now, clearly, if you live longer than this, or if you live less than this, then again, that's going to have a knock-on effect on the sustainable level of income you could achieve from a £500,000 pension. Now, you might now be thinking, okay, well, that's great, Ben, you've based this on a £500,000 pension, but I've got nowhere near that amount in my pension. And that's okay. So what I would suggest you do is check out my free retirement calculator, and you can find a link to this in the description below. And what this allows you to do is input your own details. So your current age, how much you've got saved in your pension already, how much you're contributing to that, and the sort of level of income you would expect or want when it comes to retirement. And the calculator will actually show you if you are on track to retire when you want with the income you want. Now, if you're not on track, the calculator then shows you a range of different options that you can choose to ensure you are on track to retire when you want to with the income you want. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video and got some value from it. If you did, please do consider subscribing for more videos just like this in the future, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.